Have you ever heard about the tragedy of Starfield, the unfinished?
As an enjoyer of single-player Bethesda games, Starfield was one of my most anticipated games this year. I've now put a little over 35 hours into it, and I have some thoughts.
Wow, that's already 2 red flags in 10 seconds. Impressive. I understand being excited about when Starfield was announced. So was I. But then we saw the gameplay footage. The zero point 0.5 second snippets of gameplay footage that Bethesda hoped that no one will ever look into. And by the way, that's already really bad. If a gaming company is snipping their gameplay footage into 0.5 second chunks so people cannot actually see what's really going on there. Man, if you analyzed that footage already, you knew it was over. You could already see bad AI, graphics from 20 years ago, bullet spongy enemies. It was not good. It was really not good. And by the way, the emptiness in those teaser videos, it was absolutely unbelievable. Wow.
I'm gonna keep it simple. The format, I'm just gonna split this video into two categories. The stuff that I liked and the stuff that I didn't like. And also this video
I'm assuming the stuff he liked was a really short category.
will include spoilers, so do keep that in mind. Now, I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say this. I'll say it as well. This is a Bethesda-ass Bethesda game, for better and for worse. I do want to come out right out of the gate and say this is not my favorite Bethesda game, and it has to do with some fundamental...
The fact that we have to downgrade a game from not a game, but a Bethesda game, so it even remotely can ever be rated anything above a 0 out of 10, it's quite sad, honestly.
Flaws in the design of this specific game that I think take away from the Bethesda open world magic, among other issues.
True.
I'll elaborate further, but before I get to that, here's what I did like about the game. I'd say Starfield's greatest strength is its side quests, be it faction quests or random situations you might stumble upon that quickly escalate into something unexpected. Bethesda's always been good at jam-packing their games with tons of things to do.
No. Absolutely not. Side quests in Starfield are comically stupid. I already talked about this. It feels like Starfield has been written by a 10-year-old or a bunch of 9-year-olds that combined have the IQ of a 10-year-old. It is very sad. The pirate quest, the main faction that you can join, their quest, I'm gonna spoil it, but it's already too late. You know, you probably have heard about this. Let me give you the rundown of the pirate main questline story that you're gonna experience. So you need to join the Crimson Fleet. Well, you try to join them, you get to go on a mission with the top dog and one more guy who wants to become a part of the Crimson Fleet. You get split off. You and the new guy are on your own. And now the new guy is telling you, hey, let's betray the guy whose faction you want to join now. It's gonna be cool. Well, you say no, or you say yes, doesn't matter. What's gonna happen is, well, every NPC is invulnerable. The fact that that guy just told you that he wants to betray the main guy and you say, no, I'm not gonna do it, in the most blatantly stupid way possible, by the way, he's not gonna do anything. And you're not gonna be able to do anything. Shoot him? No. Expose him? No. Do anything? No. It's on rails. It's on rails. And he will ask you like 20 more times, hey, do you want to betray this guy? Do you want to betray this guy? And you tell him no. And not a single time you can do anything about it. You can't tell on him. You can't shoot him. And even when the quest chain ends, you can't tell on him and you can't shoot him. One, he's invulnerable. And at the end of the quest, he doesn't make it in Crimson Raiders, but you do. And then you're at the main outpost of the Crimson Raiders, and guess what? When you shoot the guy who, by the way, in broad daylight, just a second ago, threatened to get rid of you, murder you, and wanted to betray the main leader of the Crimson Fleet, guess what happens when you shoot him? The gods attack you. Even though they heard what he said because he didn't even try to hide it. The moment you try to attack him, the gods attack you. and he's invulnerable, so there's nothing you can do. Oh, and by the way, the Crimson Fleet also obviously confiscates stolen goods because, that's just how pirates roll.
Overwhelmingly so at times, and Starfield is no different. And with Starfield's semi-futuristic sci-fi setting that deals with space-time phenomena, this game features some of the most creative and expansive ideas for quests I've seen from them.
Okay, this one's okay, but everything else is just purely stupid. There's no good side quests. It's usually go speak to this person or go kill this person. That's pretty much it. And the ones that give you choice are just comically sad, like the casino one, where your options are so comically evil it's insanity, and you have no freedom of action. It's just, no, the side quests are just bad.
There's a pretty good selection of fun, interesting, and compelling premises for quests, and a handful of standout quest lines. It's abundantly clear that the quest designers had a lot of fun coming up with some of this stuff.
No.
If you're looking for a game where you pretty much always have something to do, always have some kind of narrative or quest thread to follow and discover, a game whose amount of content is so expansive you could lose yourself in the game and sci-fi setting for dozens to hundreds of hours to see everything it has to offer, then you've come to the right place. I also like...
Yeah, by the way, so this is the Terramorph classic quest line, which I did not finish. But it's kind of blatantly... Dude, there's no mistake in these quests. The moment they sent you after the Terramorph, they are very blatant on the nose about the fact that, no one understands why the Terramorphs are coming. So, you pretty much instantaneously know, oh, this is a quest line to figure out where the Terramorphs are coming from. Right, because no one knows how they magically appear on planets and stuff like that. And in the second part of the quest, literally second part of the quest after the talk part, you pretty much are almost blatantly explained how the Terramorphs actually move around planets and what happens. It's so unbelievably ridiculous.
Come to the right place. I also like the feel of gunplay in this game. It's by no means at the level of dedicated shooters, but I generally found that guns...
The gunplay is bad. You take so much bullets to just delete a basic enemy. It's bad. There's no excuses.
And weapons felt impactful and fun to use, both...
There's also no melee weapons because all of them have the exact same animations, exact same swing times.
in run and gun and stealth situations. Third-person combat is still kind of wonky. I don't know how Bethesda hasn't fixed this after all this time. And the lack of shoulder switching during third-person gameplay still remains very frustrating. I don't know how this feature hasn't been included yet, but I do think this is the best that Bethesda games combat has felt. And the addition of boost packs adds a layer of verticality to navigation and combat that makes everything more fun and dynamic, especially in lower gravity planets.
The combat is just atrocious. The AI is so absolutely brain dead, there are no excuses. And the way they try to hide it, by the way, is by the fact that you can shoot an enemy a couple of times and then they're gonna stagger or slump over. That's the way they try to hide how bad the AI is. Because other than that, the AI is gonna just stand still in some situations. It's so bad.
Pretty neat addition. I've also got to give a special shout out to the lockpicking mechanic in Starfield. I actually think this is among the best lockpicking minigames we've seen in any game. It's simple enough to understand, but can really rack your brain in the best ways at higher lock difficulties. Shipbuilding, once you get the hang of it, is also a really cool aspect of the game.
Shipbuilding is completely useless, serves no real purpose in the game, and is... ironically, just an aesthetic in a space game because building your ship serves no purpose, and two, your ship serves no real purpose because of all the fast traveling that you're gonna do. This doesn't feel like a space game. You know what I actually came to the conclusion is? Starfield feels more like a game where you just randomly switch zones, and it seems like there's only roughly 3 zones in the game, but every time you come back to an old zone that you just visited, it has reset and there's different objectives. That's how Starfield honestly feels.
game with just how insanely customizable ships are. One look at some of people's creations online and you can see just how flexible this shipbuilding system is. There's something
Also, the ship system is bad. The UI is absolutely atrocious. You need you need half an hour to actually learn this stupid AI because there's absolutely not a single quality of life feature in this UI.
really fulfilling about spending all this time crafting your own ship and then being able to see it docked in full scale and walk inside it exactly as constructed. Ships in general also feel pretty good to pilot, and I particularly love the ability to claim enemy ships, which are also full-fledged and fully built with the game's shipbuilding system, and you can claim them by either stealing them on the ground or by taking them down and boarding them in space. The visual aesthetics also deserve commendation, I'd say. I really do dig the NASA punk aesthetic.
I mean, you can do it, but it's pointless.
Of this universe's technology, and I did enjoy how varied and unique each major city looked in the game. Neon, in particular, really stood out to me with its gritty cyberpunk motif. They're definitely...
Bruh. The fact that there are people who are unironically gonna compare this to Cyberpunk 2077 and say that this is better looking than even a single dumpster in Cyberpunk is just laughable.
Moments where the game's visuals can shine thanks to an upgraded engine featuring across-the-board graphical improvements compared to past...
What's good about this? Look at this. The whole place just looks purple, and that's it. There's a purple tint color filter over all of this, and there's like 2 big signs. 3 big signs, I guess. Wow. Is that really good?
There are definitely moments where the game's visuals can shine thanks to an upgraded engine featuring across-the-board graphical improvements compared to past games, with the lighting in particular doing work when it hits just right, especially on an ultra-widescreen.
Yeah, but this is Bethesda tiers of explanations. The graphics look stunning when the lighting looks out. If you want the NPCs to look good, you need to crouch. What is 2 plus 2? Is it 5? Why is it 5? Bruh. I can't.
Monitor, which brings us to the sponsor of today's video, LG Ultra Gear, a fantastic ultra-wide monitor that I've been gaming on these past few weeks. This is the world's first 240Hz OLED gaming monitor with a 0.03 millisecond response time, making...
The first one is timed by LG stock? Okay.
Visuals look smooth, gameplay feel responsive, and...
Well, you get it. If you're stuck on a low hertz monitor or low bitrate, frame rate, or whatever it's called monitor, if you buy a good one, your life changes. I don't know if even I have that. I don't understand PCs, but you kind of get the point.
Section below. Music is also one area where I think Starfield really nails it. Zer's compositions have always stood out to me across all Bethesda titles, and with Starfield, I think he really captured that sense of mystique of venturing into the vast unknown. So the bottom line as far as positives goes is that if you like the Bethesda style of single-player experience, this game will in many ways feel like coming home. That sense of being able to get...
Oh, by the way, I have never talked about this. So... the problem with this is this camouflage system is a thing from Fallout 4. They introduced it there, and Fallout 76 after that. So the problem with this stealth thing is the fact that if you don't have a sight, an actual sight that makes a big X, you can't see where you're aiming with guns. If you try to use the right click one to aim properly. You can't use iron sights with this because you can't see anything. It's so stupid, and they still haven't addressed this. Well, they made the inventory systems much worse, so it's like not a miracle that they didn't address anything.
Feel like coming home. That sense of being able to get lost, going almost anywhere and doing...
By the way, you can literally see that while he's shooting, that the NPC is absolutely not interacting in any way. The NPC doesn't care that it's being shot. That's the game. Yeah. Also, stealth has been always broken in every single Bethesda game ever. Also, Young, that is a horrible angle. Bruh. You know what they say? Beards are for people without chins. Bruh, look at this fucking absolute beast of a chin. Bruh. Just grow a chin.
Whatever you want, whenever
Grow a chin, don't grow a beard. Beards are for people who don't have chins. Come on, it's a dead giveaway.
you want remains at the forefront of this Bethesda title, much like its predecessors. Unfortunately, I do think that Starfield specifically does often get in the way of itself and what it's trying to achieve, which brings me to the things that I didn't like about the game. My biggest complaint, by far, is the way navigation...
Yo, bro is probably the only person who has ever opened the star map. The funny thing about this, the moment you learn fast travel, you are almost never opening this absolute disaster that Bethesda calls a map.
And exploration is structured, and those two things are a huge aspect of what makes a Bethesda game a Bethesda game. In past Bethesda titles, every major city, location, and point of interest was woven together by a handcrafted open world. Everything had a purpose for being there, and you could walk around and easily get distracted by all of the different enemies, characters, outposts, dungeons, scenes, and events you'd stumble upon along the way. But Starfield takes all these elements and splits them up across the galaxy, across a bunch
By the way, just notice how this works, right? He's trying to jump to that sector, to that planet. I don't know what's supposed to be called. Universe? No. Star system? So, he's here. He needs to jump here, which is a loading screen. Then he needs to open the map again, click on it, press X like a moron because, you know, holding buttons is the idiot protection in gaming. And then he's just gonna jump here again. It's two hold buttons because you're a moron by Bethesda standards, and I'm serious, by the way. Holding a button to confirm something is the moron protection. And they did this with jumps. They did this with fast travels. Can you imagine that? And then this alone is probably... moving from here to here is alone taking him roughly 4 or 5 loading screens.
Events you'd stumble upon along the way. But Starfield takes all these elements and splits them up across the galaxy.
And by the way, he probably has like some kind of super big endgame PC, and it took him quite a while to load.
Across a bunch of planets. And unfortunately, this structure means that there's no longer something to tie it all together. There's now all of this empty space in between. Space is not a seamless part of the experience. Space and its planets are separate.
He needs to zoom out like 15 times. I can't. This is why Starfield has added roughly 6 different ways to fast travel. Yeah. Starfield has so many... Every menu where it's possible, Starfield has added a fast travel function. In the scan tool, when you press F, if you look at objective, and the quest log, everywhere they have added a fast travel tool.
Separated by fast travel menus and loading screens and mini cutscenes of the ship taking off and landing, putting giant seams between the game's various segments and making space feel like an isolated hub rather than a vast place of wonder and exploration, especially since there's hardly anything to discover by traversing through the emptiness.
Oh, and by the way, you know what's the most funniest part about this shit? Look, so he engages the jump here. I'm not sure if this is true, but I think this should be true. It's the fact that when he presses the jump, this moment where you're not moving or anything, and then
many
the
cutscenes
animation
of the ship taking off and landing, putting giant seams between the game's
okay, see, the animation starts and then the jump thing starts.
Various segments.
Look at this.
And making space.
This is not a part of the loading screen. This process is not loading the destination.
Feel like an isolated hub rather than a vast place of wonder.
Look, you see? It's the loading screen. How long did it took him to load the last time? Roughly 2 or 3 seconds, right?
During exploration, especially since there's hardly anything to
and now
discover.
Look at this. It's also 2 or 3 seconds. So that animation is not even the loading screen. That's just an animation that's taking time before the loading screen for some stupid reason.
By traversing through the emptiness of space. In Elder Scrolls or Fallout, because of their focus on density over volume, you would surely find something cool by just walking around in a direction between locations of interest without ever bringing up the map. In Starfield, taking off in a
True.
direction in space will rarely yield such a reward, so you're rarely encouraged to just pilot your ship and see what happens. It's ironic that Starfield's main selling point was space exploration, and yet it's actually the thing holding it back, in my opinion. There's simply too much volume between all the good content. Space isn't this carefully crafted tapestry that unifies all of that good content. It's actually a giant chasm that splits them. And when you do finally make landfall...
Starfield is the role-playing space exploration action game with bad action, bad role-playing, and no space exploration. Can you imagine that?
...and explore the planets, there are even more...
Also, yes, this is a mini-map.
...loading screens to be found between cities and individual buildings and interior spaces. And so the game is...
by the way, yeah, we currently just saw roughly the gameplay of Starfield. And look at this. How long did this took? So, this is uncut content, by the way. This is uncut footage. It has taken him roughly a minute and a half just to fast travel. Fuck, that's sad.
It's constantly taking me out of this illusion that this is actually one giant connected galaxy. There's this parody video somebody made of what Cyberpunk 2077 would look like if it were Starfield, and it actually illustrates the Starfield experience pretty well.
The elevators, by the way, dude, this is why I'm saying that Starfield is just 3 steps back at this point. They didn't even make elevators seamless loading screens, because elevators are loading screens. Whenever you're riding an elevator, that's actually a loading screen. Starfield did not even care to do that, like Fallout 4 at least did. In Fallout 4 you had a lot of elevators, but none of them ever felt like a loading screen. You only knew it's a loading screen if you have the knowledge that elevators are loading screens. In Starfield, nah, loading screen.
Oh.
Disgusting. Jesus, that's so sad. And it's a loading screen. Bruh, that is the Edge Runner soundtrack, the main... Well, it's not the main one, I think, but that's the Lucy David one. I have that shit on my phone, bruh. I got that shit blasting when I'm picking up bitches, and I'm not even joking, by the way. That's not even a fucking joke.
Separating content across such a vast space and across different isolated planets also means that devs could only do so much with the more handcrafted planets, which tend to only feature one major city that's just kind of plopped in the middle of an otherwise mostly empty landscape. Whereas in other Bethesda games, cities were always surrounded by landmarks, ruins, settlements, other cities, characters, and curated handcrafted content that would catch your eye, making...
Oh, by the way, speaking about ruins, man... You know how awesome it would probably be to come back to Earth and see a devastated Fallout-looking city? Even if it was just empty, the spectacle alone would actually be super cool. Bethesda didn't do any of that. Bethesda added, like, one historic landmark that's decrepit now, and that's kind of it. It's just such a disappointment.
Everything feel connected and large in scope, and like there's just something out there to find always. With Starfield, we're not talking about multiple Bethesda-sized worlds situated on multiple planets. We're talking about one Bethesda-sized world diluted across multiple planets. For how vast Starfield tries to present a city...
By the way, this is probably the most unique place in Starfield because everything else is just a copy-paste of itself. But this one is pretty unique, and I'm pretty sure they just stole this design concept idea from Outer Worlds.
Like New Atlantis and the planet it resides on, without the connective tissue of a cohesive handcrafted open world, it all feels small once you walk around and get some perspective on how empty things outside the city are. You can't just walk outside New Atlantis and expect the kind of exploration that you found in past Bethesda games.
Yep.
The best way I can describe Starfield is that it's a lake's worth of content spread across an ocean, except that ocean is split into lakes across the galaxy.
No, you look at this. This is one of also the big problems of Starfield. You see that? That's where he wants to go. Do you know how many interesting things he's gonna encounter on the way there? That's gonna probably take him roughly 3 minutes of real life time. Nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. Because scanning is actually a waste, and trying to interact with the wildlife is even a bigger waste, honestly, considering how bad the wildlife is, considering it's all just a bunch of creatures reskinned from Fallout games. Yeah, this is not a one-off situation. This is every single planet. I have never heard of anyone say, wow, I landed on a planet and I went to the objective and I found something cool on the way. There has never been a single person who has said that.
The game does try to mitigate this by sprinkling some points of interest here and there, some of which might play a part in a main or side quest, but when I stepped out of a major city, walked off the beaten path, and began exploring the rest of the planet, I rarely found myself rewarded with a cool discovery, made worse by how much more empty space there is on land. A few rock formations here and there, a few alien creatures to scan or kill, or some resources to mine were nowhere near compelling enough to mitigate the tedium of running through the large stretches of basically bland nothing in order to get from one point of interest to the next. It was just literally walking and walking.
So, by the way, you can see the jetpack he's using here. 90% of Starfield's content is gated by talent points. The jetpack was supposed to be an absolutely 100% integral part of the gameplay experience, and yet Bethesda put it behind a talent point. Same with stealth, by the way. Same with stealth.
And with procedurally generated planets, the non-handcrafted ones, that's all exploration amounted to, a scattering of procedurally generated outposts, landmasses, structures, dungeons, alien creatures, and resources here and there that all began to look familiar after a while, all separated by vast stretches of mostly empty land. The procedurally generated stuff is never interesting enough to make the tedious trouble of reaching them worth it.
The procedurally generated part becomes even worse if you're not a complete idiot. Okay? Because if you're not a complete idiot, you're gonna notice that, wait a minute, I have been in 3 caves, and the first cave is almost the exact same thing as the third cave I was in. Because the random things are generated from random tiles, but Bethesda was so lazy, they didn't add actually tile sets. There's like 5 tile sets for interior, 5 tile sets for exterior, 5 tile sets for caves. If you're not a complete idiot, you're gonna very quickly notice that it's the same. Everything is just the same exact stuff.
The implementation of some kind of expedient land vehicle could have significantly mitigated this, so I'm actually really shocked that vehicles were not included in this game. It's among the most egregious omissions of this game, I think. And points of interest across planets aren't really discovered either, as the game will just kind of tell you where these are located on your map, so oftentimes it feels less about stumbling upon something cool and more about just following and checking off map markers that rarely yield really rewarding content.
Nice.
Sometimes you'll get some cool loot here and there, but I never found myself stumbling upon a discovery that made me want to do this kind of exploration more. Visually, not all...
Yo, that's one of the rare times you actually see something other than ground. Wow, Young, you don't even know how lucky you were. This is rare.
That made me want to do this kind of exploration more. Visually, not all cities are made equal. For every standout like Neon, there is New Atlantis that comes across more bland, sterile, stiff, unattractive in places, and very dead and artificial feeling. Performance seemed to suffer the most in New Atlantis. On my 3080 Ti, the frame rate would dip into the 50s in certain locales at high settings on a 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide resolution. Performance in general...
Yeah, my GX 2277 also couldn't handle the FPS booster recall. New Atlantis just has something with FPS drop. I think it's because I'm using a GX 490, and that probably lowers the bitrate, and the cooling system can't reach the small gaps, and that's why it happens. Yeah.
general, I'd say, is all over the place in Starfield. It's never unplayable, but frame rate could wildly vary from location to location or from situation to situation. It's not the worst performing game I've played, but it certainly wasn't completely smooth sailing. There were definitely significant dips here and there. And while Starfield's aesthetic can be really cool, I'd say in terms of fidelity,
No.
Starfield's visuals can be a mixed bag. Some of the scenic views and aesthetic elements, again, can look pretty great, but there's plenty of blandness or ugliness to be found here and
Look at her. Man, that's called ready for breeding.
there as well. Now, all this would be easier to overlook and swallow if at least Starfield's main quest
telling
drew me
you
in and
something.
took my attention away from these flaws. But man, did I find myself mostly bored by the main quest. It's just a series of fetch quests involving finding artifacts to activate New Game Plus. There is a cool twist involving the revelation that these artifacts allow one to travel to alternate universes, allowing one to become a Starborn and meet alternate universe versions of familiar characters, with that infinite loop becoming the game's compelling and unique take on New Game Plus. I do love the idea behind it, but with the main quest essentially being one giant fetch quest for MacGuffins, with almost every artifact acquisition playing out exactly the same. Fast travel to planet, get through a quick dungeon, collect artifact, watch the same mini cutscene, with the temples that grant you supernatural powers playing out exactly the same.
Oh, no, don't talk. Do not even say anything about becoming the Space Dragonborn. Bro, these temples are so stupid. It's insane. One of the abilities is a fireball. A wee tiny bit fireball. No, seriously, this big. And guess how much damage it does? Nothing. It doesn't even do damage. It can't. You can be level 2 trillion and you wouldn't even kill a basic level 2 enemy with that shit. It is unbelievable. How does stuff like that even get added into the game? Like, what purpose does it serve?
Travel to planet, use scanner to find building, then play the same monotonous minigame involving floating to spherical distortions in the air and then watching the same mini cutscene, with only a few notable quests and set pieces to help vary things up, with a general lack of major stakes or sense of urgency, with none of the characters really having anything compelling to offer as part of the main quest storyline. The campaign to me felt for the most part like a dragged playthrough.
Also, this is the first Bethesda game where you have not a single choice, by the way. You know, I gave Fallout 4 crap for, being too much on rails. A lot of people did so. The dialogues were yes, no, smirky, yes, smirky, no. And that was true. A lot of dialogues were kind of bad in Fallout 4, but it did have its moments. There were definitely its moments. It wasn't all bad. But Starfield is all bad. Not a single unique dialogue option presents you with a different way to solve a situation. There is nothing you can do to alter the outcome of situation outside of Bethesda's railings. If there's a quest, the quest can only be done in one way. If you need to save someone, there is no situation where that person can die. Every named NPC is, by the way, pretty much unkillable without exceptions. It's just bad. There is no dialogue. There is no choice. This is the first Bethesda game with literally not a single real choice in it. At least other games try to create the illusion of choice. But this game doesn't even give you the illusion of choice. It's either you try to shoot someone or you don't shoot someone. And that's it.
Pains me to say. And while past Bethesda games' main campaigns weren't amazing, they were still entertaining enough, whereas with Starfield's campaign, I just genuinely struggled to enjoy it. If every artifact and temple featured more varied level design and memorable set pieces, unique puzzles to solve, high-stake quests surrounding them, amazing character moments to mull over, you name it, just anything to spice things up a bit more, I'd be all for it. But these moments are non-existent at worst and too few and far between at best. One or two standout main quests aside, most of the MacGuffin Collectathon felt very copy and pasted, and it doesn't help that rewards such as the powers acquired through temples feel underwhelming. The first power you get, the anti-gravity power, is easily the most useful of the bunch, at least of the ones that I've found so far. I rarely felt the incentive to use the others. These should feel like
Bruh, it's just, the gunplay is just so sad.
ultimate abilities that can change the tide of combat. They should be really fun to use, but again, aside from the anti-gravity power, none of the others really exuded that feeling for me. The main quest is further hampered by the dated
Yeah,
presentation
but
style
did you see that? That was the fireball. Jeez, it's just so pathetic.
Bethesda games, which also applies to just all of the quests in this game. Starfield is often compared to Mass Effect, but even Mass Effect 1 established its stakes from the get-go and related all with a very cinematic approach featuring great cutscenes, compelling writing and dialogue, expressive characters, and more.
The dialogue is just so bad. There's not a single NPC that actually has a personality. And by the way, all your companions are essentially the same. You remember how in other games, well, literally any other game, you had companions that were evil, good, lawful, bad, insane. In Starfield, they're all the same. They're all the same exact companions that like all of the exact same good things and good outcomes and everything. There's no personality anywhere in this game.
Starfield, there aren't really any cinematic cutscenes to accentuate some of the more pivotal or epic moments. Animations often feel rudimentary in a way that limits characters and scenes' expressiveness. Dialogue is presented in that awkward style where the camera just zooms in on faces that stiffly look dead ahead at the camera with an uncanny 1,000-yard stare, offering little in the way of nuanced body animations to make things feel more dynamic and alive. And the writing often felt sterile, awkward, and somewhat basic, often rushing through emotional repercussions, not flowing or fitting quite right.
Mama Murphy literally bodies every single piece of dialogue in this stupid game.
Or flowing weirdly in a way where it felt like characters' emotions shift on a whim. All of which made characters sound somewhat unnatural. And maybe this is a symptom of having seen presentation of player-driven dialogue in open-world games come such a long way in games like Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Horizon Forbidden West, you name it.
True.
But when the bar has been raised so much over the years, it's difficult to not perceive Bethesda's style of presentation as dated now, hampered further by occasional issues like characters not looking in the right direction during dialogue, the camera awkwardly cutting to other characters who chime in or interrupt mid-dialogue, and offering little sense of positional awareness.
Dude, the camera cutting is so bad, by the way, that's true.
Or pivotal moments that are meant to be emotional being ruined by glitches like these.
Sam, can you hear me?
I didn't even know.
I actually love the way Skyrim presented dialogue more seamlessly.
Nice.
I wish they would have stuck with that style over returning to the more Oblivion-style face zoom-in. So these are some of the more overarching flaws that I had issues with, but on top of that are moment-to-moment issues that make the experience more frustrating. Menus across the board are cumbersome in Starfield, which sucks when the game...
The menus are literally trash. Why couldn't they just copy-paste Fallout's menus? Why? Instead, these menus are just trash. You can't even see your own weight when you're looting opponents' corpses. You can see their weight for some reason, like that will ever matter. What? Oh, is there a situation ever where you care about how much weight can a corpse carry? I don't think so. I want to see my weight when I'm looting stuff.
Demands players to spend so much time in those menus. The Galaxy...
Items are non-descriptive. What's a Grendel? I don't know, but you need to open the inventory and read and look at it to figure out what it is. It's... oh my god, it's just so sad.
In particular can feel unwieldy to navigate, further exacerbated by a lack of a list of major locations, meaning if you forget which system and planet a certain city is located in, you might be spending a lot of time just scouring to locate the city that you want to go to. Local maps are non-existent. For major cities, only icons and topography are shown with no details to help you navigate. There are no map markers or fast travel points to useful shops and services, especially frustrating in more expansive cities like New Atlantis, and interior spaces literally have no map whatsoever, which makes it easy for one to get lost or disoriented in some of the more labyrinthian interiors. Inventory management is a chore. I don't know how Bethesda hasn't figured out inventory at this point, but it's so basic and unintuitive that once your inventory starts filling up, it becomes difficult to find the things you may be searching for. It doesn't offer enough at-a-glance information. And all of this is made doubly frustrating by how much time I spent doing inventory management because of how easy it was to become over-encumbered with how much loot and resources the game enticed me to pick up. Tutorials for key features are completely absent. There's so much stuff in this game that I had to figure out through trial and error by looking it up. Little things like how to access the ship cargo, how to pay off crime bounties, or how your scanner shows arrows that guide you to your mission objective. And those arrows, by the way, did at times take...
You can Pay off crime bounties? I had no idea.
Me in the wrong direction, and there are times when the game will tell you that there is no direct path, at which point you're on your own, and with the lack of a local map, some of those interior spaces and dungeons can be insufferable to navigate due to how easy it is to lose track of entrances and exits, and how hard it can sometimes be to find the exact right door you have to enter through to go to the map marker outpost building I didn't even touch, because the game doesn't ever really guide you through it or encourage you to build outposts for any compelling reason. And from what I've played and from what people have said, the benefits of outposts just don't seem to be worth the time investment. There are no tutorials for shipbuilding either to guide you through the basics, so much of my initial time with shipbuilding was spent just figuring it out. It was cool once I did figure it out, but getting to that point shouldn't have been that difficult. Ship combat, while it does look cool and feel good moment to moment, I would say it does overall lack mechanical depth, and there's no cool maneuvers you can do, nothing to really spice up the combat, and so it loses its luster over the long term, in my opinion. Just feels kind of basic and shallow overall.
Yeah, the ship combat is easily the worst part of the game, no questions asked.
It was also a mistake to not separate ship combat progression from character skills, as it further detracts from specializing in builds for boots-on-the-ground gameplay, and will likely result in a lot of people missing out on vital
As I said, 90% of the game is logged by perks.
skills to significantly improve ship combat capabilities to even the odds against enemy ships, further exacerbated by, again, a lack of tutorials and player acclimation. And speaking of progression, I was not a fan of the way character progression works in this game. The way skills are categorized and unlocked are so all over the place that I often had to spend points on skills that I didn't need to unlock the skills that benefited my stealth build. Beyond that, some of the challenges that must be completed to rank up skills felt kind of silly. For example, there's a skill called gymnastics that offers new mobility options and helps you move better in certain situations. The way to rank the skill up is by taking fall damage, which is something that almost never happens to me naturally, especially with the introduction of boost packs. Another example is concealment, a pivotal skill for assassins that increases sneak damage. As someone who spec'd into a long-range stealth build, it was frustrating to see the game forcing me to engage with melee stealth attacks to rank the skill up, on top of the fact that to even unlock this skill, I had to put points into all these other skills above it that weren't as useful to me, which I would have gladly skipped. I just wish that the pathways towards progressing towards...
Yeah, it's shit. It is. It really is. Wow, he's actually completely roasting this system. Wow, I don't even feel like I have to say too much. Essentially, what Bethesda has decided to do here is take their best game, Fallout New Vegas. And yes, ironically, the best game Bethesda has is not even made by them. That should tell you everything you need to know about Bethesda, by the way, honestly. And Fallout New Vegas had this thing where you had talent points that you just put in and it happens, boom, bam, bam. And then Fallout New Vegas also had a system where you use 100 stim packs. Congratulations, stim packs heal for 10% more, whoop-de-doop-de. And as you can probably tell, Starfield decided to mix these systems. So, you put a talent point into something, but then to rank it up, you need to actually do the thing that, that gives you the passive boost. Which is stupid. Which is absolutely redundant and stupid.
Towards certain builds just felt more natural, that things were categorized and sorted better, so that it never felt like I was throwing away points at skills just for the sake of unlocking the stuff that I actually did want and did find useful. Creating my stealth build was further hampered by my inability to take mods like suppressors, which are...
Yeah, because you need talent points for this, obviously. And the crafting perks, by the way, the crafting stuff in games where you need to put a perk or a talent point or something to craft things is the most redundant, stupid gaming system that should be just forsaken and completely abandoned by everyone. Because there's only two situations. One, the crafting is absolutely useless dog shit, and there's no reason to craft anything ever because it's all weak and bad. Or two, crafting's completely overpowered. So this leads only to two outcomes. Everyone picks crafting or no one picks crafting.
Vital for stealth, off of weapons and attach them to others like you could in Fallout. Paired with the fact that the game seldom offered suppressed weaponry as loot, and when it did, it was never for the weapon that I wanted. Others have reported getting suppressed weapons pretty consistently, so maybe I just got unlucky. but I've also seen other players experience my misfortunes as far as trying to find high caliber suppressed weapons goes.
Yeah, the Starfield RNG is actually true RNG, which is the stupidest fucking thing ever to actually introduce to a game. You want Wade RNG, okay? And Wade RNG essentially plays out like this. If you're using shotguns a lot, the game is gonna give you, you know, slightly more shotguns than any other type of weapons. If you're using X, the game actually shows you X as reward more often. But Starfield doesn't do that. This is true RNG, which means that you can and in true RNG, by the way, people don't understand what RNG is. People think RNG is 101010110110 and like that. But no, true RNG is like this: 1010011111 because that happens often, and this happens often in Starfield. Because it's through RNG for some stupid fucking reason.
And then when I decided I'd just gather resources and craft my own suppressors instead, I learned that doing so required putting points in.
By the way, figuring out the crafting system is also insane because there's nothing in this game that makes you think there are crafting tables. You find a research table, but that's it. Discovering that crafting tables exist is actually RNG. I'm pretty sure some people have 30 hours finished the game and have no idea crafting tables exist, and they're not sure why they are even doing any research to begin with in their ship. Because it makes no sense.
Into a skill dedicated to crafting, which, to unlock, further involve putting points into skills that maybe I didn't want. 35 hours into the game and I still haven't found or been able to craft a suppressed high-caliber single-shot rifle to snipe enemies with. Speaking of enemies, enemy AI is all over the place in Starfield. During moment-to-moment combat, they are more often than not dumb as a brick, either behaving in tactically inefficient ways or just standing in place while getting shot. When it comes to stealth, there are times when it feels like they have eagle vision, and other times it feels like they're just straight up blind. Companion AI isn't any better. They often get in the way during combat, and when you're trying to engage stealthily, they will just kind of run into enemies and ruin your stealth plans, so I had very little incentive to bring companions along. They often were a detriment to combat. Enemy variety also left a lot to be desired. I just generally found that I was basically fighting just dudes in spacesuits with not a whole lot to distinguish them, with the occasional mechanized enemies or alien creatures here and there. And the alien creatures, none of them felt otherworldly enough or like a huge threat, save for like the big terramorph enemies, which you fight over and over again. Guards' reactions to your criminal actions can be all over the place, sometimes offering the option of surrender, other times just opening fire the second you're in their line of sight. More than once, I didn't even realize I had a bounty in my head because I didn't remember ever committing a crime intentionally. Every once in a while, I'd just like fast travel to a planet only to find that all the guards hate me, and so I'd have to fast travel to another star system and get rid of the bounty because you can't get rid of your bounty on the same star system that you have a bounty on. And then beyond the flawed elements are the myriad bugs that I encountered. None of them were game-breaking, but they were absolutely game-disrupting and immersion-breaking. Aside from the numerous crashes I experienced and funny but immersion-ruining moments like animation bugs or characters walking into
I never experienced this.
Dialogue scenes, there were numerous occasions where I had to reload or hard restart the game because of a bug where the screen would completely
one of the bugs that I did experience though was quick save and quick load crashes. Now it works. Now quick save and quick load works, but if you're a pickpocket, turns out if you use that function too often, it sometimes just crashes your game. But if you're playing normally, it pretty much never happens. But if you're actively quick saving and quick loading, the game breaks so often.
Glitch out to the point where it was impossible to see anything, or because I would load into empty or glitched spaces and remain stuck there. One time, even reloading my save wouldn't fix the issue, so I literally had to like troubleshoot in-game by fast traveling to other systems and planets before the issue rectified itself. These sorts of major interruptions happened enough times and were disruptive enough to be frustrating. Overlapping dialogue was also a common problem where companion characters would start speaking extensive dialogue while other important dialogue was taking place.
You are one of the strangest creatures I've ever met.
that back on Earth, people used to use the stars to navigate. That's so cool. But I guess it only worked because they just lived on one planet. And that sounds boring.
Decorum, Marines.
Remind me one of these days to tell you the tale of a certain
Come on
song
side
I
on
code.
our unauthorized training mission. Sadly lost.
And then there are smaller but still annoying issues like how my character would for some reason sprint diagonally in third person when I was only pressing forward on my keyboard, or how the stealth camo invisibility effect would also turn aim indicators invisible in first person, making it hard to aim.
Yeah, this was a problem in Fallout 4. Bethesda knows about it, but, you know, the modders are gonna fix this.
Or how sometimes certain parts of my character would remain invisible while other parts would remain visible after deactivating my
You
invisibility
gotta
cloak.
love it.
My Starfield experience was essentially death by 1,000 cuts, a few of those cuts being quite substantial, namely the way navigation and exploration works in this game. And the content that this game offered, particularly the main quest, were not enough to compensate for all of those flaws that made my brain just kind of tune out. There is a lot of cool content that has been crammed into this game, but with how the game gets in the way of itself with its design and technical flaws, the friction and tedium of accessing all of that cool content just became too much for me. Just having good content isn't enough. The connective tissue of that content also has to be compelling, at least for me, and when it's not, you know, the game just loses its luster. 35 hours in, I realized I had no motivation to keep playing Starfield, and the only reason I forced myself to play as long as I did was just to do my due diligence as a reviewer. Now, some might say, hey, play 50 hours.
Why do you need to play more than... Dude, there's a lot of people who understand in 20 minutes that this game is bad just from the intro.
70 hours, 100 hours, and it'll eventually click that there's still so much I haven't seen, but even if that were true, if a game can't sink its hooks in me by the 35-hour mark, I just have to surrender to the likelihood.
Oh, the classic Bethesda fanboy cope. Oh, it gets good at 50 hours in, and it gets good at new game plus 25 million. Trust me, bro. You just have to endure it. It gets really good then.
That this experience just isn't for me. But that doesn't mean it may not be for you. I mean, I've seen plenty of people enjoy this game, as long as you understand what you're getting into and what flaws you might encounter. If you can get over some of the frictions that I couldn't, as many others have, then there is a whole Bethesda-ass universe here to explore and bask in. For my part, though, my take is that I think that
I don't know. I think Bethesda is my new litmus test. Well, Starfield is my new litmus test. If you like this game, I don't think that you're an intelligent being. I think you're an animal.
Out.
And not even a dolphin or a crow, you know? I'm talking about an animal as in a worm. Anyway, that was Young. Does he not have an outro screen? What's wrong with you? Anyway, Young, yeah, everyone's favorite boy. Man. I'm surprised he didn't chill, honestly. I'm really surprised he didn't chill. Yeah, well, unexpected stuff, right? Anyway, this was Quizzer Sensei, and thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.